welcome back to the latest episode of the Master of None podcast. I'm your host, as always, Stephen Murphy, joined by the regular rugby crew of Sam and Westy. After a week off, boys, are you feeling, Westy, you feeling refreshed?
Yeah. Woohoo!
Nice pump.
Go
I can tell in
podcast.
your voice. Yeah. Sam, what about you?
No, I was feeling so refreshed. I was loving having a week off, and then Connacht, I was like, "Oh, great! Now we'll beat Benetton and we'll get on the." And no, it's
turns out probably should have took another week off, judging by the weekend. But
genuinely, I think I'm in too deep at this stage. Like I'm sitting in a right huff with the shakes for like most of the Saturday evening and Sunday. Then like it's getting too much. I don't know if I can commit to this sort of up and down. It's like being on a roller coaster. Like.
Yeah, I was at the press conference today, and obviously without giving too much away, but Andy Friend said it was one of the most frustrating games he's ever been a part of, and he's coached for quite a long time. So that really sums it up.
Though he's a fully fledged Connacht coach through and through now, because Connacht coaches before him and Connacht coaches will come after him will be disappointed with how we showed up in Italy. Italy has literally never been the simple routine win that we've wanted it to be. Every time we go, one year we went to Italy and we were losing and we managed to get the game called off for a thunderstorm, thank God.
Yeah, Zebra, I remember that.
Well, we could have done with some thunder there on Saturday, because it was, we'll get into it, but we'll start with Benetton, obviously Connacht. Benetton coming out in top 20 points to 12. What should have been an incredible day for Connacht fans. Dennis Buckley making his 200th appearance, having Bundy back. There was hope in the air. There was a real sense of this could be a great game. And within 30 seconds, poor Dennis Buckley gets injured and has to go off. And Westy, we should have turned the TV off then, really, shouldn't we? Because we knew what was going to come.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad omen. And I don't think a lot of teams deal well with an injury so early on. And I think Connacht in particular have suffered in a lot of games where we lose somebody kind of key like that early on. I think we've kind of maybe been a bit shell-shocked from it. It's kind of disrupted whatever kind of game plan we have for the day. I don't think we're overly well versed at adapting to those kind of scenarios. And yeah, I mean, this first 30 seconds were probably the highlight of the day.
Well, obviously not the Dennis Buckley injury. Just before
the injury. I mean, before he was injured.
Yeah, a word, Westy, on Dennis Buckley. You know, it has to be so tough for him having the massive build up last week. It was all about Buckley making his 200th appearance. I think he's the third player after Swift and John Muldoon. And then for it to be gone so quickly, that has to be just heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, as you said it perfectly. There's a lot of focus on him all week, a lot of articles written about him all week. 200 caps for a club, 200 caps for Connacht, again, third player ever to do it. Talk about what we've been saying for a long time, which is like, how does this guy not have an Ireland cap to his name? Even off the ball said it. Like, if he played for a different province, he would be playing for Ireland. Like, it's just physics.
Off the ball said that.
Yeah.
Are pigs flying? What?
And they caveated it by saying that if you play for Connacht, you play at your own risk because you're never going to play for Ireland. So it's pretty.
At least
pretty interesting.
At least they're being honest with it now.
But yeah, look, an awful day for him, really. I mean, he'd always remember 200 cap, and unfortunately, he'd always remember for the wrong reasons. But what a servant to the province. I'm so glad we have him for at least one more year. I don't think anybody would have held it against him if he'd taken a contract somewhere else. Consistent player like himself, he'd make a tidy amount playing in France.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it is so sad. But Westy or Sam, sorry, the next couple of minutes were quite good for Connacht. Like, they went up, a great maul led to a penalty, then a line out led to another maul, and Delahunt scores for the try. We were all feeling quite hopeful at that moment.
Yeah, definitely feeling quite jovial. I think what really went wrong was with the Buckley injury, we didn't see the effects of that, which was Paddy McAllister coming in for him, who I didn't think he was too good the week before. He was taken off before halftime and Buckley was brought in. Duggan is out injured at the moment. Burke, for some reason, hasn't been brought in, who I think has probably just looked better than McAllister, unfortunately, for McAllister this season. He's been out with a long injury. So I just think that didn't kind of show up until a little bit later on. We rode the crest of probably being a better team on paper for that first 7 minutes, but then a few small errors went against us and they got back in the game and heads dropped, and then we lost a scrum battle, and then we weren't allowed into the game from momentum and that sort of thing. So first 7 minutes, Delahunt scoring with a maul try, it looked great, and then just a couple of really, really catastrophically simple errors and some good Benetton play killed us. But yeah, I do think that Buckley going off was one of the main factors. Buckley going off so early, I think the plan was probably always to bring him off around 60. That's what you do with props. So it was probably one of the main factors as to why Connacht just couldn't get going. He's so good. His ability to turn over the ball, and what happened to him in his injury, he was jackling and I think quite dangerously taken out, and it sounded like a bad injury based on what he said on Instagram. He could be out for a long time. Like he said, there was a crack in his knee, and if that's an ACL thing, you could be looking at close to the full year to get him back. So, worrying times. You hope that Duggan can step up in the future, in the interim period, and kick on. But yeah, I think losing him so early was definitely catastrophic for the entire game plan, because he does bring a lot. He might not necessarily score a lot of tries, but he brings a lot of what we like to do, which is quick ball, turnover ball, get a few jackals, seal off very well. He's an athletic hook, or an athletic prop, and losing him was detrimental. Yeah,
and in fairness to McAllister, they always say you need to be prepared, but coming on after 30 seconds was never in the game plan. So it was never going to be an easy day for him. Westy, typical Connacht, one step forward, two steps back, scoring that try earlier on, and then Benetton cut us open minutes later and kill any momentum that was possibly built up. Why do we keep seeing, the only thing that's consistent about Connacht is us talking about how inconsistent they are, and we're blue in the face about it. And I know even at press conferences, you can see Andy Friend and the coaching staff are blue in the face about it. But why is it, can we make any sense of this? What do you think is the issue?
It's probably a few issues. One thing that's kind of a double-edged sword is the amount of squad rotation that we do, which for a relatively small squad is really impressive. Especially for the last few games, has been using them well. We're making a lot of changes each time around, giving game time to players, to younger players. Even you said like Bundy's just back from a very lengthy time off. You're not gonna. It's very difficult to come back at 100% from that. Connor Fitz has been playing really well. We're giving him lots of opportunity to play. We're rotating our second rows. We're getting the young lads onto the pitch. Dowling and the likes playing really well. So I think maybe there's a little bit of inconsistency from a leadership perspective there. Maybe there's a couple of places where we're falling down. As I say, an early change never really helps a game plan take footing in a game. I don't think there's just one answer. It seems like we have kind of a hangover after every big victory. I think emotionally we seem drained after beating the likes of Munster and having to go out and play Treviso, so quickly afterwards. But that's not really an excuse any professional should have.
Yeah, and the game was littered by those small mistakes. Sam, you referenced them earlier on. The one that annoyed me most was, do you remember when Bundy ran in the way of a runner early on in the first half and give away a penalty? And it's a player of his experience. Why are they doing this? Sam, we've seen this now game in, game out, these small, silly mistakes that just kill any momentum and, shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I'm going to try and put it a little bit in perspective of the Buckley injury. So in my mind, what's happened is you've got a centre partnership there that hasn't played for a good number of months, and Tom Daly said in the aftermath of the game in the press conference that they didn't get the ball enough, and they weren't cohesive enough, and they just didn't play with it at all in the second half. I think they touched it a couple of times each. That's it. But the errors, I think, were confounded by probably slowing down of the ball and inability to recycle it quickly. Even, we saw that massive break kick-started by Prendergast and Marmion, and we ran the whole length of the pitch. And then Benetton were allowed to reduce that next ruck on the 5 meter line to 6-7 seconds by, rolling away extremely slowly. And that really added up. And we were at a loss then to what to do. And you see with the scrums going the way they are, I think what's happening is you're forcing the team to try something that's off the cusp, and that's why so many passes went to ground, so many passes didn't go to hand, so many people ran wrong lines. People were kind of trying things a bit too hard. It seemed like from the injury on 30 seconds, it was almost like we have to try something. We only have 79 minutes now to get our 4 tries, whereas I just think there was a lot of impatience. I think maybe that falls a little bit on Conor Fitzgerald. He had a great game against Munster, but maybe that game is one in a few. He needs maybe get someone like Jack Hardy in just to manage it a little bit better, because I think when it was all going wrong, what happened to me is out the back line, I just didn't see much leadership. I didn't see anyone taking control. And I think when the forwards were getting pushed back in the scrum penalties were coming, the line out maul defensively was actually much better, but I think we were on the back foot and people try stuff too much, and that forces these really poor errors. I don't think that we were massively helped by some of the decisions around the breakdown or the 50-50 calls. I was listening to the Under the Six podcast earlier and Kieran Crowley was on it. And even he admitted that some of those 50-50 calls in the scrums could have gone either way. So I think that's something. I don't think that you can blame that on the loss, because I think that when those things compounded themselves, a better team, like let's say a Leinster or a Munster, look for a better way of doing it, but they're not impatient about it. But I think Connacht came across as extremely impatient from 30 seconds in and looked to try and force things and didn't take penalties in front of the posts. And I know you're chasing the 5 points, but I still think just as a professional rugby player, you get the win and the bonus point comes with that. It doesn't need to be the be all and end all from 50 minutes in. So I think a lot of it to me just stems from just being caught in the hop, caught in the back foot because of such a frustrating start with Buckley going off and the whole game plan changing, and like around that, it was frustrating to watch, and the silly errors compounding themselves over and over again. But there's nothing you can really do. Aki's been out by no fault of his own, but due to suspension for so long. Daly's been playing out of his skin, and even if he had a terrible game, which I don't think he did, you couldn't blame him. The chap is dead on his feet at this stage. He's played every minute of every game almost. So it's frustrating. It's an end of season thing. It's, luckily the Rainbow Cup, and we have used it as a very good way of integrating players, like Westy said. So on the whole, going to try and remain positive about it. Prendergast again was class. Murray again was class. The mistakes are the mistakes. I just hope that those mistakes are dealt with over the summer. The new forwards coach comes in. We get a better foothold. We get a better front football, because that's one of the reasons why Munster and Leinster and Ulster can be so successful, is because they have the ability to dominate up front, and that allows their backs to play.
Yeah, you made a good point about not dealing with the ref, maybe in the right way. And I've seen a few people comment now, and some people messaged me about it. Wesley, do you think that Connacht deal with referees smartly enough, or, are they nearly savvy enough, like other teams are, with influencing the referee? Do you think Connacht have a problem with that?
I wouldn't necessarily say we have a problem. I'd say we can probably be a bit cuter in how we deal with this. I think, and I'm not slagging off Jared Butler, but one thing that comes to my mind is when Pablito gets the red card and everyone's like, oh, but he's the tallest guy on the pitch. It's like, you're not picking your argument clever there. The referee has said something that's clearly wrong, which is he has not dipped, which you have photographic evidence of him dipping. So, you need to be a little bit smarter in how you construct your argument or how you kind of speak to the ref. Although that is a last-ditch grasp at, like, trying to keep a player on who's about to be sent off. So just meaning maybe small snippets like that, we could pick our kind of our pain points a bit better. Like Sam said, like the scrum stuff, like I just don't think on the day McAllister was up to it. Like, I know he's a better player than that. Having to come in after 30 seconds is really difficult when you're not in that mind space for starting. I understand that.
Can I just play devil's advocate on that one for 1 second, Westy? The first scrum penalty they got was the third reset. The first 2 infringements on that reset were the ref decided to reset the scrum instead of go with the infringement, which was their player going down. First, he lost his footing, and the second, his head hit the ground. The third one, they pinged Paddy McAllister on it, and then that set a precedence. If Paddy McAllister gets the first penalty, which he deserved because they were the stronger and the Benetton team went down, do you think that changes the entire course of how the scrums are viewed for the rest of the game?
It might do, but I do think the Benetton scrum, especially in the second half, was dominant. They did have the upper footing on us, and we obviously tried to make changes to adapt to that. Obviously for problem 10 with Finlay going off, which may or may not have been a blessing in disguise. But I just think, again, in those scenarios, we need to start trying to paint a better picture rather than getting frustrated by what the ref is saying. And that's kind of, I don't mean to single out Paddy McAllister necessarily, but when we do start to get pained against, we start to kind of to encroach on ourselves. And what you need to do is try to be a lot more extravagant in what you're doing to try and present a much better picture to the ref. So I think we could be a little bit cuter in that sense in how we're combating these problems after once it starts to become a problem, or even before it starts to become a problem.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry. Just with the Jared Butler thing, yeah. completely agree about the way he asked that question. I think as well, though, and this is going to sound bitter, and I don't even care how bitter it sounds. I'm bitter. I'm always bitter. Himself and Boyle regularly get very fobbed off by refs. It was so much so that, like, Bernard Jackman talked about the kind of the manner in which they were talked to by another ref in the league earlier on in the season, and they were very disregarding and kind of just cast away to the side. And I think that if you had, let's say, someone of the international pedigree of Johnny Sexton or CJ Stander or Peter O'Mahony, you know, a ref automatically, I think, subconsciously just affords them a little bit more time to explain. Whereas I think that Boyle and Butler do that. It might be in the manner in which they speak to him, or it might be in the way the ref looks at them. But I think that they do have to fight to almost get a word in with refs. Whereas I think that these international players are viewed as almost like, oh yeah, I'll let CJ talk, or I'll let Sexton talk, and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure if that's definitely the case, but it comes across quite like that, because you see with Butler, like, the ref's like, no. And he doesn't even listen to Butler saying, like, he's the tallest man. I don't agree that the tallest man argument was well put. I think he should have said, look at him bending at the knees and the hips, and that might have put something in the mind. But I also think that quite often our captains look like they get fobbed off very quickly.
But again, we don't know if that's because how they're speaking to the refs. You know, we don't hear every conversation that goes on, you know, before and after a game. But even Jared Butler saying the tallest man argument, it's too late to make that argument. He's already made up his mind. The time to do that was before he went to the TMO. But look, at these things, it does, like, I know what you mean, Sam. Sometimes it can come across like that. And that referee on Saturday definitely didn't really want to talk much to Connacht players and seemed to be lenient in 50-50, you know, decisions towards the Italian team. And look, it is what it is, but at the same time, it doesn't cover over the basic mistakes that Connacht made as well. And on the night, Benetton were by far the better team and deserved the win. They looked, you know, better in every area of the pitch. And throughout the season, we've seen this with Connacht, that it's one good game, one terrible game. And it's not going to be good enough going forward. Like Sam, we know, we spoke to Paul Boyle about this. Like, the players feel like this way too. They want to take that next step. You know, we'll talk about now a new signing coming in and Mac coming in as well. That are these going to be big enough changes going forward? I think the issues are they're mental with this team, aren't they, Westie? Is that fair to say? It's not like the players are there on the day. We've seen how good they can be. Like, this year, you've had a win in Dublin, a win in Belfast, and a win in Limerick. Like, that's bad teams don't do that. So it's upstairs with this team, isn't it?
I think so. And when we talked to Friendy earlier on in the year, he said that there are times in the games where the game plan seems to go out the window. And I agree with what you're saying. I think overall, Benetton were the better team. I think never is that more apparent than after Finlay comes back on, after we've managed 14 men for so well, and then we cannot string three phases together. Like, we drop a ball from a line out, we drop a ball in the middle of the pitch, like, our calls are wrong, and you're kind of like, well, you've just got through the hard part. Now you've got your man back and we've got territory. What are we going to do? And, you know, Sam said as well that there are times there we need to be picking to take our points. I think I said the same thing to you guys during the match, that it looked like we were going for the 4 tries, and dear God, like, why was that ever the game plan against a team we won against in the last minute of the game earlier on in the season, you know?
Got to respect the confidence, though.
I mean, you do, right? I mean, I love that they carried that confidence through into the game plan before the game. It's just a shame they didn't have that confidence in the game to execute the game plan.
During the game.
There's your problem right there that you're asking me about. Like,
but I think if you have a bigger personality at 10, even if the game plan going out from the dressing room is to go for the 4 tries and to try and get the bonus point, I think a bigger personality at 10 just puts it up to the captain and says, I know we're going for this, but momentum gets us there, and we haven't scored in 15, 20 minutes. Get something else on the board. And I think that you need someone to really step up and make their mark and put it out there. And maybe that wasn't happening because Daly was kicking and Fitzgerald was on the pitch, and Fitzgerald has never come across as a poor kicker. We've seen him kick very well before. So I think that maybe that might have been an issue there, that no one put their hand up and said, I know we're going for 4 tries, but let me kick this so that we're pressuring them on the scoreboard, because that is where you get 4 tries. You get 4 tries when you force Benetton's hand and force the game to be more open and force them to try things and make mistakes, because Benetton were happy days. They didn't really care. They just had to go out and play their game, and like Connacht allowed them. Connacht lost it for themselves, and they allowed that to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a big moment, as you say, about not taking points at half time. Been held out over the line so much. Now again, the referee says Benetton roll away and then gives them the penalty, and it's like, hold on a second here, make up your mind. But that call aside, even if 2 minutes earlier we just taken the 3 points, we're going in now. Look, we like this is a bad example because we come out at halftime, we score straight away, but then we relax again and we let Benetton attack us constantly for 20 minutes. So
yeah.
I don't know.
But Benetton did as you said, Sam did a great job. They only scored one try. The rest were all penalties, and I think the number was thrown out today. I think Connacht conceded 16 penalties, which is just you're not going to win any games doing that. And Garbisi is very Finn Russell-esque. You have no idea what he's going to bring, but it's petrifying all the same. I was watching it being like, this guy could throw an intercept or he could do a little dink over the top and run the pitch with it. There's no in between. And facing that can be petrifying. But we have to obviously talk about Big Papa's red card and his third of his Connacht career. Looking at lengthy enough time off the pitch now. Well, during the summer, obviously, but he hasn't much legs to stand on when it comes to hearings, with this being his third red. But it's been heavily debated. I think we all agree it's a red by the letter of the law. It's shoulder into head, which at this moment in the game, it's a red card.
I don't agree with that.
You don't think it was a red card?
No, well, like there's mitigating circumstances, like in the Munster game the day before, where the player is dipping can allow a mitigation. And if you look at it, the player is being pushed down by his own man, which I think is mitigation, which means that it can be not a red card. It can be a yellow card for the offence. And I think that, in my mind, is what happens. I think that the letter of the law says if it hits him with no mitigation, and I don't agree with the ref's interpretation that there was no mitigation, because if you watch the player, he's going down. He starts 6 feet away and he dips as he's getting hit, and he's being pushed by his own player, and that's not looked at from any other angle.
Again, as I said, the way the ref says it on the pitch is that Papali'i is not lowering. He's standing upright. The words upright are used, and Papali'i is never upright in that tackle.
The only thing that goes against Papa is he does make contact with the head, and I think he does slightly drive upwards, which again is, I think that comes from the rugby league background. Friendly's often said he needs to go low, and when he does go low, he's devastating when he does do that. But we all agree now, this is the problem now with Big Papa going forward, is he has his reputation now, and people who don't watch the games and don't actually watch the incidents now, all they'll hear about is Papali'i's a red card machine, and that'll be his tagline for the rest of his career with Connacht, unfortunately. And any 50-50 decision now will go against someone. That's an issue. But at Westy, how much responsibility is also on Papali'i, to change these habits? The 3 reds, you could argue that maybe 1 or 2 was debatable, but at the end of the day, they're 3 red cards.
Yeah, and look, it's as I said earlier, it's on the individual player and on the team as well to paint a good picture to the ref. So regardless of if it's justified or not, and I'm not saying that it's not justified, but Papali'i now has a reputation for having high tackles, which means he has to tackle 3 inches lower than every other player, because if it's anywhere near it, he's going to get red carded, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So I completely agree with you that while I don't think the last 2 red cards were red cards, especially the one before this one, which was complete and utter bollocks, he now is in a position where it is completely on him. He can't tackle above the waist really anymore. He kind of has to really go for chop tackles, or only in situations where he's really comfortable can he try and pin an arm in as well. But he needs to be tackling below the kind of chest plate of his opposition. He needs to be eating ribs, basically, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. What I fear about Sam is surely now, and probably he obviously won't be playing now for a few months, but say if this was the middle of the season and when he comes back and running games, this is going to be on his mind constantly when he's playing a game. Constantly, every tackle he enters, he's going to be worried about it.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think the last couple of weeks, and it's frustrating to, like Westy said, hear people, or like you said, hear people saying, "Oh, red card machine," or "not fit enough," or "not trim enough," and I'm going, you don't watch games, because the last couple of games he has been chop tackling people and tackling around the waist and dragging people, but not going high at all. And like Friendy said today, it was sloppy. But he has been working on it relentlessly, and he definitely has improved on it. And the people that say that he has bad tackle technique are looking at that one incident on Twitter and looking at the fact that he has the 3 red cards and judging it all on that and not watching full games, because in the last couple of games, there's not been a hint of him being near it, and he's been really good. But this was a sloppy momentary lapse of judgment, but maybe it being on his mind, him going into a full off season plus some, because he's going to get a couple of weeks banned on the other side of the summer, will give him a chance to continue to work on his technique, but also it will stay in his mind. There's nothing wrong with having something on your mind going into games. I prefer him to have it on his mind than to completely lose judgment and go high again. So, it mightn't be the worst thing. I don't know if you've ever done it, but my new thing, instead of going off the ball and listening to people that aggravate me, is to look up connachtboards.ie and read some of the most septic bile thrown out there about some of our players. I have to think that it's...
Sam, why do you enjoy being unhappy?
I don't know.
Why do you do this to yourself?
I like defending my players, and I like defending...
But you're arguing with morons, and you're never going to win.
I don't ever reply.
Hey, those morons make up your entire listener base, Stephen.
But they're good morons.
I don't ever reply to them. But some of the calls for his new contract extension to just be chopped because of this incident, it's disgraceful, and it's so silly. But it's like we were talking about privately the other day. I think some of these kind of questionable red cards that he's getting with a 5-6 week ban, where like Mike Brown gets a 6-week ban for stamping on someone's head intentionally, whereas he gets a 5-6 week ban for his third, accidental hit into the head. I agree with the red card rule. I agree with protecting the heads, but I think that you can look then in the citing and allow people to defend themselves without punishing them further. Allow people to come forward and say, look, I got my red card, my team were punished, but this was a genuine mistake. My hips were bent, my knees were bent. I tried to go low and I made contact with the head, and be given a 1, maybe a 2-week ban. But 6 weeks, it's bordering on ruining his career. And it's only a kind of fledgling career now. He was rugby league player for a while, then he was semi-pro, and then he was playing the Mitre 10 for Bay of Plenty, and now he's made it to Connacht. So, he's 28, 29. It's not a long career for him, but it could be ruined by a couple of these incidents, which, we've discussed the referee, and I'm not talking about this particular game. We discussed the refereeing across the league. It's so unbelievably inconsistent, and a player like him can have his career ruined because of a few decisions that, the Finlay one 2 minutes later, the Niall Murray one in the game earlier on in the season against Benetton, the one in the Munster game the last day, the Peter Sullivan no arms tackle. Like, these things are just being picked and chosen which ones they're going to punish. And I think it's infuriating, because I really like the guy. I think you've seen a lot of really positive stuff from him the last couple of weeks, and he's kind of gone from strength to strength. And this is unfortunately another moment of just a lost kind of concentration, and he's going to get severely punished for it, and people are going to level it at him. And now people will dip, people will try and manufacture red cards against him. They will dip into tackles and they will get hit. Like, how many times is there contact to Craig Casey's head that's not even looked at because of his height? And that's going to happen.
Just want to clarify, everyone who listens to this podcast is not a moron, and I love you all very much. Just want to clarify that.
Not everyone. There are definitely some morons.
I love them all like my children, Sam. So back off, okay? Why don't you back off? That's at Sammy_P if you want to direct any abuse.
_SP.
Sorry, _SP. Apologies. Westy, I know people have said, you know what, you shouldn't have signed a big bastard who hits hard. But guess what Connacht do? We go and sign another one from Tonga.
Another one.
Do you know what? One wasn't enough. Let's double that shit up. We signed Levi Fafita from Grenoble. The Tongan big bastard is what he is. 31 years old. 120 kilograms, Westy, of pure Tongan beef. 19 caps for Tonga. Played in every game of the World Cup for them in 2019. Are we excited, Westy?
Yeah, I think we're gone down the right track.
There was hesitation there, Westy.
Yeah, there was, because he's played in French D2 for the last couple of years. So, Tonga.
French D2 is probably a better standard in the Pro 14.
Okay, well, that's a whole different conversation, but moving swiftly along. Tonga also, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, did they win a game in the World Cup? I don't know if they
Winning's overlooked, West. Winning is overlooked.
No, look, it's the right thing to do. We've got a player who's got a good few years experience behind him. He's played in the World Cup. He's got big match experience. He's played with our forwards coach already, so that's a relationship that's bringing through. You're hoping there's a plan around this guy. And as we said before, I really hope that the likes of a player like this can help bring up the young second rows that we have in the club. I did see the highlights video that Connacht will be shared of him, and I did comment underneath it that, like, lot of their tackles are pretty high for the Pro 14, so we got to be careful here.
Oh God.
I'm excited to see how he fits in. I'm excited to see how he adapts. He looks like a great player. Looks like a great ball carrier.
Looks mobile.
And again, we do have a lot of exactly. We do have a lot of problems. Well, we had some scrum problems the weekend. We've had a lot of maul defense problems over the year. So having a big, strong, experienced player in there can only help. I mean, our maul defense can't get any worse. I mean, touch wood, because I don't know.
Oh, it can.
That's what we're hoping here, mainly, isn't it? Though, Sam,
Yeah.
the maul defense is going.
That's not the only thing I'm hoping.
But if he comes in and fixes that alone, it's worth the signing.
Yeah, that's as much to do with the new Dualt Steenkamp. I can't even remember.
Senecal,
yeah, sorry. That's as much to do with him as it is with the Leva Fafita signing. But yeah, no, size is definitely something that will help with the maul defense. I was surprised when I heard he was only 120 kilos and 6'4", because Niall Murray's 120 kilos and 6'4". They look like different species. Like he looks
it's 120 kilograms in Tongan is definitely heavier than 120 kilograms in Roscommon.
Like a metric kilo or a Tongan kilo.
Yeah, Tongan kilo. Tongan kilo is a good 5 pounds, I think.
Absolutely. He looks like the right type of signing. From the highlights video, there's very little of him on YouTube or Facebook or anything. The highlights video that Connacht got, fair play to them for amassing so much content, because I was looking through YouTube for ages and I could find one interview with him and one highlights that was one try 3 times. But he looks like he's got pace, power, size, all the things that we kind of need. And it's a good bit of international experience. Played all 4 games in the World Cup for Tonga. He's played 65 times for Grenoble. I looked it up there, Wesley. They were in the pro or in the top 14 or the top league, whatever it's called in France these days, the year before last, and he was playing with them at the time. So he was up there when they went up.
So we got relegated.
Yeah, but the Pro D2.
He was the reason they got relegated.
That's what I'm hearing, Sam.
But we would get relegated if there was relegation in the Pro 14. Like, so.
No, we wouldn't.
We would have in the
second,
past.
Sam. Second.
This happens. The Pro D2
forget about the past.
The Pro D2 has a lot of really good players because of France's paying ability and the kind of the lure for especially Islander players to go and make money. Like, there's a lot of money in the Pro D2. A lot of players would leave the Pro 14 and go play in the Pro D2 happy days because they'll make money. The same with like the Ealing Trailfinders in the championship. I don't judge him because of where he came from. Like, we got
okay, I need to caveat that. I'm not saying he's awful because he's about Pro D2. I'm just saying there's a question mark over it. I'm just saying that it's not
Pro D2. You said the same about our forwards coach until you found out he moved from Stade and not Grenoble. You said the exact same thing. You said Pro D2, big question marks.
Yeah, but again, he had experience in Champions Cup and European Cup rugby. This guy doesn't. What I said before was we need somebody with big competition experience. I'm not saying that this isn't a great signing. It has the potential. Steve asked me, was I excited? I'm a little bit excited, but I'm also, I remain to be blown away.
You're a bigot, Wesley, is what you are. You're an absolute bigot and a fascist.
I have an oil painting of Bundy Aki right there. How dare you?
I think, obviously there's a little bit of kind of question marks over an unknown signing. Like, he's players that not many people have heard of or wouldn't have heard of before this. But I think that, unfortunately or fortunately for Connacht, we have to have a good scouting team and we have to have players. And this player is known by our forwards coach that's bringing in. He turned down Grenoble, tried to re-sign him. He turned that down. He's playing in like the Pro D2 was a good quality of competition. He's played 65 times for them in 4 years. That's a decent amount of games. He looks like he can kind of run. He looks like he's got size. Like, I don't think we were ever going to sign Evan Etzebeth. So like, I think that that's where we need to shop, and you can't get someone from the top league in France because they're all on too much money. Too hard to lure anyone over from England unless they're in the championship, which is a lesser division than the Pro D2. So I think this is the perfect sort of area where we need to be shopping. We need to find a good deal, but someone that will improve us. And we're losing not just size, but experience in Quinn Roux. We haven't seen enough of Quinn Roux in the last 2 years to say we're losing much on the pitch, but we're definitely losing size, which is one thing we've missed him, and we're losing his experience around the place. And this guy's an international. It might not count for much.
USA 31-19.
There you go. And it might not count for much, but his brother is an absolute baller who plays for the All Blacks and the Hurricanes. So happy days. Maybe he might come down the line.
Let's hope he's not the
Sam,
the runt of the litter.
He's from Tonga, but his brother plays for New Zealand. You wouldn't be accusing the New Zealand team of, poaching players for the Pacific Islands, would
Or
you?
the Tongan team of poaching players from New Zealand. I don't know. I don't know
Oh,
how.
I've never heard
Yeah.
that argument before.
That
But,
was, I like it. Flip it on its head.
I'm not sure. I've got unquantified reports that he's you remember Matty Fafita, who played for Connacht. He was called up from Sligo a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago, and he played a couple of games. He got a new contract. He started as a centre, and Pat Lam moved him to flanker. I've unquantified or unconfirmed reports that he's a cousin of his. So hopefully Agent Matty was putting a bit of word out there or something.
Yeah, let's see if someone fact checks that and come
I'm
back to us. Let us know.
That, like,
We'll ask them.
TonganAncestry.com, try and find out.
Yeah, exactly. But well, look, as I said, we are excited to see what he can produce. The one thing about not having much footage on him, hard to plan for opposition teams. So let's look at it that way, and we look forward to seeing what he does next year. But we'll move on from Connacht at this stage. We have one more game now this season to look forward to and recap. But we'll move on to the other Irish team that was playing the weekend, Munster versus Cardiff Blues. Final home game for CJ, Tommy O'Donnell and James Cronin. A real shame that there was no full house Thomond. I'm sure the atmosphere would have been incredible, but not a great performance at all by Munster, to say the least. Cardiff looked the far more dangerous team, scored some cracking tries. Their scrum halves were making some great breaks. And again, Wesley, similar to Connacht, Munster just, especially in that first half, just kept making frustrating mistakes that just were unlike them.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the kind of fluidity we saw Munster play with, kind of, let's say, against Leinster in the first game of the Rainbow Cup, or kind of in, everybody against us, let's say, because we beat them. I guess we already forgot. But yeah, definitely a more. I think they kind of went back to type here, and like all of their tries were maul tries. And that's nothing wrong with that. It's a system that works, but they went back to type and kind of played the kind of more physical bashing game. A couple of great breaks from Dale End every now and again. I think you're always going to have that. But definitely the team to watch and the team to enjoy watching here was Cardiff. They're like some brilliant offloads from second rows. Like it was very, very entertaining stuff. And I kind of felt for them at the end because they could have come away with that victory. But I think it highlights one thing that, we're talking about Connachts being inconsistent. I think Connacht's big problem is our inability to see home games like this. I think that's where teams like Munster, even Ulster and Leinster really shine. Like they are able to get a foothold in a game and keep it, whereas we not only struggle to get that foothold, but even when we have it, we struggle to capitalize on it. So I think it was a very impressive game for Munster. I think some of the guys, Knox at that try at the end, Wycherley had a great game. I think if you're a Munster fan, you're not happy. You're not happy that you're losing, O'Donnell and CJ and many others, but you're slightly optimistic in that your academy is now starting to bring forward these players who can take the reins.
Yeah, and Munster, Sam, are in a weird phase right now where they want to play more expansive and get better at that so that they can take on the best teams in Europe. But they also know that the way they currently play and have played for the last couple of years is good enough to beat most teams when it comes to, say, Pro 14. So they're sort of in a weird situation right now, aren't they?
Yeah, I like what Westy said there about revert to type. I think it's something that Munster have, Leinster have it as well, that I wish Connacht have, which is not necessarily to go more conservative, but to have a fallback game plan that if all else is failing, that this game plan can get you a 4-point win at home. Like that's, just something that will just, your bread and butter stuff that you're really, really good at. But then, like you said, they try to play a bit more expansive. They can train and play a bit more expansive. And if it's not working, at least they can go back to this and still get a win in a really tough game against a team that were arguably better than them for most of the game. So it's weird to see that side of things, because you kind of think with Larkham, they've been trying to get this through and it's just not happened. And they go back to the way it was. But, I'm jealous from a Connacht perspective of their ability to do that and their ability to eke out a win, even if they've been trying stuff for 40, 50, 60 minutes and it's not come good. They can maul it over and get a couple of tries and seal a victory. So it's something that maybe them as kind of fans that have a few more better days under their belts than we do are getting sick of. But I for one, I'm quite jealous of that ability, because our home form this year from Connacht point of view, or our ability to just see out games like that, or to just win games like the games towards the end of the season, they're really like they stand out to me as games where we just didn't have a bog standard basic plan that we were 100% good at. We have to kind of almost play at 100 miles an hour or nothing at all, whereas Munster can get by at 60 miles an hour or can try and push it and see if they can get up to that 100 miles an hour. I think the Larkham thing is kind of weird because I still haven't seen much of that influence. It's been there in little fits and starts all season. I think we were expecting a bit more expansive, and kind of reports from Australia were like, why were you expecting a bit more expansive? He's an extremely kicking orientated coach from whenever his history in Australia. But then he was linked, I think, with the return to Australia. Was it Waratahs were after him recently? So I don't know what the story there is. Do they have the same full coaching ticket for next year? Is Roundtree and Larkham staying, or do we know?
I don't know. I think so. I haven't seen anything otherwise.
Yeah, Larkham was definitely talked about moving back to going to Waratahs at some point recently. I was reading it, and you'd got to think that Roundtree is, he was the Georgian national coach. He's been on countless Lions tours. He's showcased himself as an extremely able forwards coach for his Munster team as well. So like you got to feel that if there was a coaching ticket available around, he might be looked at, especially in England. He could be almost lured away. I'm not sure, but maybe he's really, really enjoying being the forwards coach there and has no interest in leaving. But yeah, but got back to your point, I don't think Munster were overly impressive, but their ability to win a game that's not going their way is something I'm extremely jealous of.
Yeah, definitely. They know how to grind out a win. Westy, do you agree with what I said earlier on? Do Munster need to sort of, embrace that expansive game if they are to take that next step?
I think they do. And I think Sam is right. And that's great to have a game plan. They know that halfway through a game, if it's not working, they can revert to and stay competitive and get into a position where they might be able to win. I think Leinster do it way better than them. So it's not going to win them titles because they'll be outdone by Leinster at the minute. The way Leinster, Leinster score a lot of tries off maul tries. Leinster have big barreling forwards, and they have that expansive back game as well that's available to them. I think, I think, first off, you want to see a more expansive game. You want that for the league, but I think Munster will have to have that weapon in their arsenal. I mean, look at when they played Leinster 4 or 5 weeks ago. They played a more expansive game and they got into the game. And once they had a good foothold in the game, they were able to keep it. Not only keep that, but keep Leinster out of the game, which was very impressive. So I think they do need to move towards. Doesn't have to be offloads. It doesn't have to be Fijian style passes, but a more intelligent kicking game, creating territory and kicking into it, capitalizing on teams on the back foot, not necessarily, and I don't mean it against Conor Murray, but not necessarily the Conor Murray box kick to 10 meters forward that somebody can maybe try and contest. No, a more intelligent kick into more intelligent space, kind of the way we see Ben Healy playing in that sense, the way we know kind of Joey Carberry can play as well, where a way that I think Jack Carthy is very strong in is seeing that space on the fly and kicking into it for somebody who's also tuned in to run onto. So it's not necessarily an expansive game plan of, never let the ball touch the ground, but it's about diversifying how they're getting the ball across the pitch. Because we know they can hit up physically, but there are teams that are also better than that at them in the leagues they're going to play in.
I think Westy's point about that, I think that you'll get that a lot more now that Carberry's back. I think this year they've been all over the place in terms of who's actually starting 10, and people have been in, and Healy's been in, and JJ's been in, and it's been a bit kind of lacking in consistency, and that consistency would have kind of had to come then through Murray. But now if Carberry is fit and stays fit, I think you start to see that really show its head. I think you'll see a lot of teams, like Westy said, not having the ball and kicking it away. And Carty's done it very well for Connacht this season, put it into the corners, because from watching the Super Rugby AU in Australia with the golden point rule, no one wants the ball anymore because you've got more opportunity at winning a penalty as a jackler as you do on the attack side of the ball. So I think that being able to pin people back is going to become so important in the next year or two because of the kind of protection around the jacklers. So Carberry for Munster will, I think, allow them to do that, and that start to breed a bit of success because he's a very, very intelligent kicker.
Yeah, exactly. And Carberry since his return hasn't been, overly fantastic, but I think next year we'll really see him, make that next step, and hopefully he does for Ireland's sake as well. The big talking point at the end of this game was 3 captain's challenges in the last 5 minutes, 2 successful for Munster. Cardiff's one was not successful. And people have been slating this. Even Johan van Graan came out and said it's not a great way to win a game. I think there was an audio clip of one of the referees, even I don't know if it was this game, but saying like, yeah, I don't like it either. The captain's challenge. Westy, these were all correct calls. Munster won the game from a call that was right. People aren't happy about it, but surely it would be more of an injustice if Cardiff scored that try after having done something illegal.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think anybody's saying that they shouldn't have challenged it. Of course they should have. But I think that the issue is that, and I've kind of said this about the captain challenge from the start, is that it undermines the reffing of the whole game. If you're going to point out a time where the refs were wrong, then sure, that calls the whole game into question. The line we've always been fed by refs and TMOs and all that is that everything is being checked in the background. Like, you say, did you check the tackle? It's like, yeah, we've had a look, it's fine. And the fact that you can now challenge that, and the fact that it's ever been upturned, or whatever the right phrase is, just kind of devalues the whole reffing of the game. I mean, I don't know. I just think it puts every decision now under a microscope, because if you're wrong here, why aren't you wrong there? Having 3 decisions potentially overturned in the last 5 minutes of the game is ridiculous.
We'll see. So what, Sam, do you agree with this? Like, why is there such disdain over this captain's challenge? Because we've seen through the Rainbow Cup, like there hasn't been a challenge that has been incorrect. Like, that was,
so why should you have to challenge? The refs should be making the right decision in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with that, but that's never going to happen in a game. I know they keep saying that, but we clearly know that that's not true.
This is my biggest thing, is I think with the introduction of the captain's challenge, you've seen less TMO interjecting. I think in seasons gone by, the TMO has constantly, you've heard it over the rest, Mike, have a look at that, just keeping that, wait until the next breakdown, you'll see, and we can look back at that. And that's been happening. I think that's actually been happening less since the captain's challenge, because they're trying to put the onus on the players to allow for, quote unquote, a more free flowing game. And I don't think it's good. I don't think it's worked well. And what's really annoyed me the last couple of weeks is captain's challenging has existed for the entirety of my watching of rugby. Captains having a good rapport with a ref and being able to be like, could you just look at that? Because they're definitely doing something illegal there. And refs have gone, I'll look at it, or I'll keep it in mind, or in the TMO, and going back and checking TMO. And that has happened. And the respect between a ref and the captain has existed. And I think it's been undermined by this captain's challenge, because now you have to officially ask the ref questions instead of just having a good rapport with a ref, which I think has happened, which has been the case in the past. I'd love to actually look back and look at some times, but in my mind, there has been times when people have asked refs to look at things and they have, or the TMO has gone, yeah, I'll check that in the background while I'm going, and gone, actually, he's right, that was illegal, or that was high, or that was whatever. The CJ one, I have no issue with it, because, CJ pointed out something that was illegal, but unfortunately the captain's challenge was used wrongly in this case, because he shouldn't have been allowed challenge a non-whistle defence. And then it throws into the mix whether or not you can challenge something if Cardiff were given a penalty, and you can challenge whether or not you can contest that challenge with, if that was whistled, was the thing near it. It's too ambiguous. It doesn't, in my mind, work. It didn't work down in the Southern Hemisphere. I was on board with it for about 4 seconds of the Ulster Connacht game at the start of the Rainbow Cup, and that's about it. And that showcases to my mind, if that happens in a game next year and the captain's challenge doesn't exist, refs should be more open to listening to a captain plead his case in a moment of such importance like that. The ref made a decision from 50 yards away and was wrong, and refs should be able to accept that, and that should be the TMO should especially back that up. So in my mind, the captain's challenge is needless if a ref treats a captain with respect, looks at things, and massive big decisions like last passes before tries that are questionable, or questionable knock-ons that you judge a knock-on from 40 yards away. Those should just be checked regardless. If it's that important a moment, then it should just be checked, and it'll take 3 seconds to check.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't like about it was, do you remember in the Connacht game, Portugal went back, scrambled. They called it that he went over the line. Jared Butler questioned it, and the referee almost used it as a tactic, like challenge it, like to stop, basically as a tactic to tell him to stop talking, a challenger, or stop talking to me about it.
Come at me,
I don't like that. Yeah, come at me, Jared Butler. And I don't like that part of it either. But I think
once he brought the ball back over his own line, changed my mind.
Changed my mind. Yeah, exactly. He didn't, by the way. Portugal did fantastically as always. But look, it's so up for debate. It doesn't. I don't see too many people defending it, saying that it's a positive thing in the game. So
it was scrapped
yeah,
in the Trans-Tasman as well. So it's
yeah.
World Rugby are definitely going to come to the realization that it's not worked. Rugby
I
league
think,
fans
though,
don't like it. It slows the game down in rugby league too much as well. I think it's gone.
I think it's gone too, but I do applaud them for trying it. I think we all need to identify that. Like, we don't want them not trying something else that could be fantastic going forward because of the backlash of the captain's challenge or the red card rule. You know, that was the perfect opportunity to trial something like that in a competition that no one really cared about, apart from us when Connacht won. Update, we don't care anymore now they lost. So just, you know, I released an official statement on Twitter. But, you know, I'm glad they tried nonetheless. But right, boys, I think we'll wrap it up there. We'll have one more game next week to comment on. Connacht play Ospreys and what hopefully is a win to finish off the season. And then what we're going to do, boys, here, and you heard it here first, we're going to do end of the season awards the following week. So player of the year, all that sort of jazz. So we might even open
They will
up
all
to
go
the
to
fans.
Connacht players.
Will we get them all on?
No,
though?
Connacht season awards, so they'll all be
Okay.
Connacht players. Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, Westy.
We'll try and get them on for the first ever Masters.
Yeah, that would, or yeah, actually, yeah, that would be great. Yeah,
What do we
so
call them?
the award will go to whoever accepts to come on.
Will we call them the Masters or the Nunnies?
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Again, tweet us if you have a funny name. Tweet us, and we'll decide then. But until then, boys, appreciate it. It was good to have you back. And again, thanks to everyone who listens. You're not morons, despite what Sam and Wesley say. And we'll do it again next week, boys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
See you later, boys.